I want to dive into a problem that somebody had with a contractor. I want to talk about it real quick. So when it comes to a problem with a contractor, I think there's multiple angles that we need to touch on in order to make sure that we get the whole problem and solution. So here's the problem. The cleaner spent 6 hours cleaning and didn't clean 2 bathrooms, and they didn't tell the company before leaving. So if I was to look at this problem, I'm still not seeing that they did a bad job. I'm just seeing that they were maybe a little bit too detailed and were unable to get to the 2 bathrooms. In most cases, if it's a new client, you don't even know the condition of the house. I would have possibly asked for some before and after pictures and a little bit of understanding of why they weren't able to clean the 2 bathrooms. I would start there. But also, if they're a newer contractor, especially contractors in this instance, is what we're tackling, um, we're going to want to dive into a few more things. So I think there's some education. And I also think, education as far as, the contractor on what to do if they walk into the house and at 6 hours, like, hey, if they do that walkthrough and they don't think that they'll be able to get to the 2 bathrooms, like, how do they handle that? I think there's some education there. And I also think that there's some education there for the customer as well, too, saying, these quotes are based on average home conditions. However, upon arrival, if the condition of your home is dirtier than what was described, the quote can change. Or the quote is covering up to 4 to 6 hours. However, if it goes over, we may need to convert it to hourly. I think there's some education on contractors as far as like add-ons, and that could be a bathroom. Like, hey, if they clean a bathroom, they get this percentage. If they clean a kitchen, they get this percentage. Like, everyone has their own pricing, right? But add-ons, right? It could be laundry, it could be a window, it could be a fridge, it could be an oven, it could be a bathroom, just depending on how your pricing is broken down. Contractors typically have a schedule of fees, which is the breakdown of the percentage for everything. But I do think there's a lot of education that kind of goes into preventing these type of problems. Um, and then in this instance, the specific example right here, they wanted to terminate the contractor. Very first job with a contractor. Again, I'm not looking at it and seeing complaints or saying that they didn't clean well. I'm just saying that they maybe spent too much time in other areas and there was a little bit of miscommunication in it. I don't see this as a reason to terminating somebody, but I do see that there's some preventative measures that could have been in place to help better set this contractor up for success, help better educate the customer that, um, you know, maybe your home's not as clean as what you're describing, because it happens all the time. Um, so let's go into how I look at this problem and how I look at finding the solution to that. So I think of follow through. What is some better follow through? Oops, and I'm missing one. So F, and then expectations. Expectations. So this is the F diet framework. So I like to look at it as in follow through, deal breakers, interview questions, expectations, and training if you work with employees, or just kind of like reminders through third party examples, or education through third party examples, meaning most contractors find more success if they do this, like not telling, not necessarily training, but still education in some format. So let's go ahead and talk about this real quick. So this example right here, is there anything in the follow through that you could do to help prevent this from happening? That's what I would typically be looking for. So follow through. I'm not thinking of anything just off the top for follow through. I would say, like, one thing I could think of right here is calling the contractor and going over their very first work order and talking it through with him. I'm going to move myself out of the way so you guys can see this. Okay, so that's what I would say for follow through. Let's see if I could get these out of the way. Okay, so let's see if I could remove my face or something. Okay, all right, we'll figure it out, guys. So follow through. Calling the contractor, going over their very first work order, talking it through with him. I think that could have prevented it right here. So I think it's important to understand that contractors are not required to stay there if it's going to necessarily go under their hourly rate that was typically promised, right? Because contractors, they still get a minimum rate in most cases, right? So legally in the state of California, they're allowed to renegotiate their rate. They're allowed to decline the job. They're allowed to um, accept or decline the job. They're allowed to renegotiate the rate. There's a lot of other things that they're allowed to do. Um, so understanding their rights, understanding that you're working with contractors, I think the best preventative way right here is to call him, go over that very first work order, talk through some of those situations. Typically, it's covered up to a certain time. Then, after that certain time, they either have to what? They're not obligated, most likely, to stay there to go ahead and finish that job. What do you want them to do? I personally like contractors that upon arrival during their walkthrough is to see if they're going to be able to accomplish the whole job. Is there anything that is crazy about the very specific job? Is it way dirtier than average? That right there could have been a cue, so they could have called the office and just let them know. Maybe you could have worked with a customer and added on an additional deep cleaning charge, which would have added on 2 more hours. So there's usually some type of pricing. You're going to have to work with the contractors and work with some pricing and all your verbiage in order to make sure that you guys can get there. But especially if you copy pricing from someone, or you go from pricing from working, as yourself, the cleaner, to now having all these expenses, you're going to go through some adjustments. And I think it's just a matter of working through those and finding that balance. Okay. Deal breakers. I like to think of anything as far as deal breakers. I think of deal breakers as in, is there anything that we could have added to our application to prevent this from happening? I don't necessarily see any deal breakers at that point. I do think of deal breakers as like tangible things. Um, Interview questions. So I know this specific example right here. Again, I would always have an interview question in here of like, what do you do in the instance that there is a complaint? How do you handle it? Typically, we only accept answers as to where you go back and re-clean it. So in this instance, if this was after the problem, I would communicate with the contractor. Well, this client was unhappy. I would reference back to the interview. In the interview, we did recruit you based on your response of saying that you would go back and make sure that the customer was happy. Here's the given scenario. Again, kind of just approaching it like that. So in the interview, I typically do, again, ask scenario. If customer is unhappy, and then we only accept reclaims basically at that point. Expectations. Is there anything that you could have done for the cleaners or the clients for expectation? I think there's both. So clients and then cleaners. Cleaners, I would definitely add it to the orientation. And then if it is something that you're seeing on more of a regular basis, again, it could be in a few different spots, like an email sequence. It could be a contractor quiz after their orientation to make sure that they understood it. If not, that's like a spot right there where you could provide that education. It also could have been in that follow-up call for their first work order. And then for clients, I think it's important to say that online quotes are like having disclaimers. Online quotes, disclaimers, average cleaning conditions. If upon arrival, conditions are dirtier than average, there may be a price adjustment, or we can convert the job to an hourly at the same price, same quote given. I think this is a great way right here, but I would verbally tell them if it's an online quote. I would have it on my booking form as well. And I would also have it in the reoccurring emails on the 3-day reminder, 2-day reminder, booking confirmation, like all those as well. I would make sure that they have it on there. Your quote is based on average industry cleaning times. You could spruce this up. You could change it to however you like, but I do I've been in the cleaning industry for a long time to know that majority of your quotes are not necessarily going to be accurate. And especially if you're new, I would recommend going over how, like, because, right, so when it comes to online pricing, it's really important that your times to clean a bathroom are accurate. You're not going on like the fastest person on how to clean a bathroom. So if you have a master bathroom, like our master bathroom, for a deep cleaning, we give like an hour and a half. And we quote it to where it's covering an hour and a half. You can be a slow cleaner or a fast cleaner, but we have it for like an hour and a half. And then if you know all your percentages and stuff later on, we'll reduce it on the reoccurrings. But for that deep cleaning, like we allow up to an hour and a half to clean the bathroom. So 2 bathrooms, we'd allow like 3 hours. Kitchen, we'd allow like, and so are your time frames in your booking software that are estimating these things, are they on the very, very low end or are they on the high end? I think if they're on the low end, you're going to create a lot of problems for yourself, for your company, working with contractors. We can't go off of one contractor cleans the same speed every single time. So we need to keep that in mind. All right. And so again, for right here, I would say clients, or maybe I would just even say booking software. Make sure booking software durations are accurate. And honestly, I would say for cleaners as well too. And again, I mean, I'd probably put this under a little bit of expectations and under the training part as well too. But a schedule of fees. They need to understand how your pricing is. So working with contractors in the state of California, we were required to give them a schedule of fees. So a schedule of fees is saying, hey, this is our hourly rate. This is what you get. And that's if you were to charge hourly in that instance. Like whatever literally your exact pricing is what you would share them and they would see their percentage. So you charge a customer this for an oven, this is their percentage. This is their take home. This is per bedroom. This is per bathroom. And this is what we charge. This is what you get. That's a schedule of fees. How do you break it down to where they understand your pricing, to where it's not confusing? Usually from us pricing, it's bedrooms plus bathrooms plus square footage. And you would have like a square footage, like what is your square footage pricing breakdown for like the base, the start. So maybe you'd go like square footage plus bedrooms. How many bedrooms do you want to have clean? Here's the price per bedroom. You'd give some examples, like break down your pricing up front at the top of it. And then at the bottom, give some sample scenarios. Break it down of square foot. This is like the price. Let's say this example is square foot. This is the price. Plus, let's say the customer has 3 bedrooms, but they only want 2 cleaned. So only going to charge 2. This is what we charge. This is what you get, and kind of, again, maybe they wanted to add on blinds, whatever your add-ons are. We always recommend having lots of add-ons because then it takes away that possibility of a contractor saying if it's included or not. Because with contractors, we can't necessarily say, check this, check this, check this, unless it's on the work order. And I know a lot of cleaning companies start with bedrooms, bathrooms. Yeah, that's a tangible item to check off. But if you had additional things on there, it does make it a little bit easier as far as saying, hey, it was on the checklist. And then in that instance, let's say where a customer was unhappy, something wasn't cleaned, if a very specific item wasn't cleaned, the contractors need to understand. I would say that comes down as well into the training reminders. That can be an email sequence, like a 7-day onboarding email sequence. Hey, here's one topic we're going to cover in this email today. Next topic we're going to cover into the next email. And you could use third-party examples in those scenarios where it's really broken down. And something that's complicated or not, you can go ahead and make sure that they have a PDF, they have an image, they have an example, they have a spreadsheet, like whatever it is, right? They have a video breakdown, however you want to make sure that they have the most education, awareness kind of going into that situation is going to be your best bet. Again, if you're working with contractors, though, just make sure it's spoken about in a third-party example. So again, another instance is you could reference the law to where it's like, hey, as a contractor, I just want to brush up on some of the contractor laws. We're that middle party. We're providing a supreme service. The customers book with us, and we can only pay you the percentage of what we get. We're not your employer, so we can't just pay you if the customer didn't pay us for it. We can always give you a part of our percentage or again, whatever, but we can't pay you more, right? So however you want to break that down for training reminders, but kind of coming back to this situation up here, the contractor is probably going to want paid the full time that they were there, especially if there's some education pieces that are missing or expectation pieces that were missing. I would want paid in full price if I went in there and, saw that the job covered up to 6 hours. I tried my hardest to get to everything, but maybe some of the areas were dirtier and it just took more time. And if they wouldn't have gotten those areas to that level, and they would have tried to half-ass it to get to the other one because there wasn't enough time, because maybe the booking software bit on the lower end of side. There's a lot of different things that come into it at that point. But we wouldn't want them to do that, because then they would still get a complaint even though they went to the bathrooms. You know what I mean? So we got to look at the situation in whole. Was it complaints on the cleaning that they did, or was that area good? I would still personally pay the contractor. I would explain everything, and I would handle it accordingly. I mean, I think in this situation, you're probably going to need to give the customer a discount if you didn't explain it to the customer in full. Preventative measures as well could have been that they had told the client in the very beginning in the walkthrough that they weren't going to be able to get to the 2 bathrooms. I think communication. So again, making sure that's in your F diet, add that in here again. That could be your email sequence right here, where you are reminding them of example walkthroughs. You can even create an example scenario on Fiverr, or you can just do it on a PDF, like whatever you can do an animated version. Animated versions are going to be pretty good as well too. You can probably get one for like $150 on Fiverr, but you can get a few of these training videos, get like 7 of them, have like a 7-day email sequence. But for this one right here, you just throw up an example. Hey, I'm here to clean. I'm the contractor, and then there's a walkthrough. They're doing a walkthrough. Like, here's the work order. You can see it on the screen, like a little work order. You're going to go in. They're going to look through the place, and then maybe one example of to where they didn't go over that they couldn't clean the bath. You can even use the same exact scenario. Maybe they didn't clean the 2 bathrooms and they cleaned it, and at the end maybe the customer was unhappy, and then we'll say, oh no, so it was like a poor example. And then you do, let's redo it, like let's see another example. And you could make it fun and excited, and you could do another example to where they do it, but now it's the proper way of actually telling the customer in advance, we're not going to be able to get to those. Would you like to, add on additional time so I'd be able to cover it? Or would you like to convert it to an hourly? What would be the focus areas? Or just calling the office and letting them know, hey, it's dirtier than what's expected. Taking some before and after pictures to back it up as well too, and trying to have the office reach out to the customer and do that for you. There's a lot of different ways. What does that look like for you? Every single cleaning company is going to have a different way. We personally let the customers or let the cleaners choose to renegotiate it with the client because they knew what we charge. And then they just call us and they let us know, or text us and let us know, hey, the customer approved an additional $120 for that deep cleaning add-on. So we can add on 3 more hours or 2 more hours, like whatever it is, right? Or we added on so-and-so for an additional fee. And then your office can call and confirm, or they could just shoot you a text, say, hey, I did a walkthrough. They're wanting to have these additional areas. Can you reach out? Again, solve that in the beginning. What does that look like for you, your company? How do you prevent that? Do you want them to talk to the customer? And then, of course, if they're not comfortable talking to the customer, that's why you're a third party, because you're going to provide that benefit for some people who are too insecure to go ahead and do that. And if they did really do that on a regular basis, then they'd probably have more clients of their own. Sometimes they like having that middleman because they don't like that confrontation, and they might want to just shoot you a text. So we do like, again, having multiple options. If you do want them to do it, they could either text you or they could do it with the customer directly, whatever they feel comfortable with. You're there to support them. But in that instance where you don't want them to reach out and you'd rather just have them call you, then again, you would call the customer, and just them understanding that, hey, if it's 8 hours and we don't have approval of additional time, you need to do the best you can. But you need to understand as well too, that might sacrifice certain things, right? So setting those examples, what do you want them to do in those situations? Thinking of a lot of them, because there's a lot of situations that can happen. But essentially, when you have problems arise, I want you to break out the F-Diet acronym and break it down a little bit more on how you want to solve this, and put these little pieces in your training. Now, when it comes towards training, reminders, follow-up, whatever this email sequence is, it doesn't just have to be a one-time. It could be in the orientation, and it could also be in the 7-day email sequence after. It could be in a monthly email. It could be a quarterly email. It could be a yearly sequence. If these are repeatable problems, you want to make sure that you put them on a frequent basis. So just make sure you keep that in mind too.